Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to dive into some really fascinating work from Dr. Gabor Maté. We're going to tackle a word that, is everywhere these days, but it's also super misunderstood. That word, trauma. We're going to get into what it really is, where it comes from, and maybe most importantly, what it actually means to heal. And you've probably wondered about this, right? I mean, the word trauma gets thrown around for like everything. A bad day at work, a breakup, a truly life-shattering event. It all gets lumped together. So how do we cut through all that noise and figure out what we're actually talking about? Okay, so to really get our heads around this, let's start with what trauma isn't. Let's clear up some of the big misconceptions right off the bat. And let's be honest, we've all done this. You have a really rough day and you say something like, that meeting was so traumatizing. But what we usually mean is that we had a super difficult, super stressful experience. And according to Dr. Mate, that's where we start to get it wrong, because we're mixing up two things that are actually very different. And this is where we see the really crucial distinction he makes. Look, all trauma is definitely stressful, right? No question. But, and this is the important part, not every stressful thing is traumatic. The real difference isn't the event on the outside. It's about what happens inside of you because of it. Okay, so if trauma isn't just the bad thing that happened to us, then what is it? This is where things get really interesting, because Dr. Mate's work gives us this incredibly powerful and honestly empowering new way to look at it. And the clue is right there in the word itself. Trauma comes from a Greek word that just means wound. That's the perfect metaphor. It's not the event, it's the psychic wound left behind. It's a scar, an imprint on your nervous system, on your soul, that can become kind of rigid and inflexible, just like real scar tissue. And this quote is everything. It's the absolute heart of this whole idea. Trauma is not what happened to you, it's what happened inside of you as a result of what happened to you. Just let that sink in for a second. It's such a simple shift, but it's huge, because it moves our focus away from the external event, which, let's face it, we can't change, and puts it on the internal wound, which we can do something about. And that's exactly why this new way of thinking is so incredibly hopeful. You can't go back and change what happened. The past is the past. But you absolutely can work on healing the wound it left behind. Okay, so if we're talking about trauma as an internal wound, what causes it? Well, the answer might be a little broader than you expect. Now, obviously, big, terrible events can cause trauma. That's a given. But here's what Dr. Mate really emphasizes. These wounds can also form when a child's most basic, fundamental needs just aren't met. So it's not always about the bad things that happened, but also about the good things that didn't happen. He lays out these 4 essential needs for a child, and just think for a moment what happens when these things are missing. If you don't get unconditional acceptance, you learn I'm not good enough as I am. If you constantly have to work for love and approval, you never learn how to just be. If you're not allowed to feel all your emotions, sadness, anger, you learn to just shut parts of yourself down. And without that freedom for spontaneous play, that natural creativity can just fade away. It's easy to see how not getting these things can create some really deep, lasting wounds. All right, so trauma is a wound that can disconnect us from ourselves. So what does healing look like? What's the end goal here? Well, just like with the word trauma, the word healing gives us a huge clue. It comes from an old word that means wholeness. So healing isn't about trying to erase the past or pretend it didn't happen. It's about becoming whole again. It's about reconnecting with those parts of yourself, your feelings, your body that got split off because of the wound. And this is another one of those really critical distinctions. Healing is not the same as being cured. Think about it. You could have a chronic physical illness that can't be cured, but you can still be a deeply healed, whole person emotionally and spiritually. And the opposite is true too. You can be physically cured of something, but still feel totally broken and disconnected on the inside. Oh, and let's talk about that old myth, right? Time heals all wounds. Well, no, it just doesn't work that way. Time on its own doesn't do much for these kinds of wounds. They can just sit there, dormant for decades, and then, bam, something triggers them. Real healing is an active process. It takes work. It takes intention. So if healing is this active thing we have to do, what's the key? What does it actually require from us? Well, the answer is kind of surprising. It's a beautiful paradox. It all comes down to vulnerability. And get this, The word vulnerability comes from the Latin word vulnere, which means to wound. So our vulnerability is literally our capacity to be wounded. And here's the paradox. That very capacity to be hurt is also the one thing that's absolutely required for us to grow. Dr. Maté has this incredible analogy for it from nature. Just picture a tree. Where does the new growth happen? It's not coming from the hard, thick, protective bark, is it? Nope. It grows from the very tips of the branches, where it's soft and green and completely vulnerable. Growth is literally impossible without vulnerability. And it's the same for us. To heal, we have to be willing to soften those hard defenses we've built around ourselves. And that brings us to our final point. And honestly, it might be the most liberating idea of all. It's about moving beyond our stories. You know, when you've been through something really hard, it makes sense that we take on certain labels, maybe victim or even a more empowering one like survivor. And those can be useful for a time. But Dr. Maté's point is that if we let that label become our entire identity, we actually get stuck. We limit who we can be. Because here's the thing, you survived. That's what you did, but it's not who you are. It's a part of your story for sure, but it's not the whole book. Who you are is so much bigger than your suffering. And that's really the big question this whole perspective leaves us with, isn't it? If you were to let go of all those labels, if you stopped identifying with your wounds and your story, who are you then? Who are you really? It's a pretty powerful thought to sit with.